Hello and welcome to the Bear Boost Traders podcast, Talk with Traders. In this episode, Thor and I talk about how to find your trading edge and some of the things you can do to make this an easier process. Towards the end of our conversation, we also talk about several books that have helped us through our journey as traders. These are great recommendations that can help any trader from new to experienced to expand and improve their trading. Without further delay, let's jump into episode number 6, Finding Your Trading Edge. Hey guys, welcome back to the Bear Boost Traders podcast. My name is Carlos Moreta alongside Thor Young, and today we're going into episode number 6, which is it's gonna be a good one because I think you can take a lot away from this and be able to. Thor is putting up his hands for number 6, so yeah, it's been really welcoming. By the way, we'll talk a little bit before we get into our main topic. Thor, it's been fun. It's been fun to do this, and the warm welcome we have received from you guys has been pretty good. So Thor, how you been, brother?
Oh man, I have been absolutely fantastic. It's been a great week to trade. The market's got some volatility in it, which it was lacking for a little while. So we've, us day traders have been having a lot of fun with that. And like you were saying, just really enjoying doing this podcast, really enjoying the feedback we're getting from our new YouTube family that's starting to grow around us, and we're getting some good questions. Tonight's episode, or this evening's episode, is going to be, based pretty much on just a few of the questions that got out of there, because we're getting questions. So, and our main thing is we want to be able to interact with y'all and have a repartee. Most shows are just always just whatever the show wants to deliver, however they want to deliver it, whenever. And we're really sensitive to trying to have a show that kind of sticks with what our fans are asking for versus that. So much love to everybody out there in YouTube land on the podcast. Thank you for the likes and the shares and all that stuff that y'all have been doing. We really appreciate that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And just to remind you guys that you can always reach out to us. Best way, if you want to submit a suggestion or even feedback on the show itself, because and we gotta shout out. I don't know the person who was watching the show, but they gave you some good constructive feedback, which we appreciate, guys. So definitely send that over. Because it's just going to help us make a better show for us all to enjoy. So thank you for that. So that constructive feedback does go a long way.
Absolutely.
But yeah, we'll look forward to hearing from you guys at podcast@bearboottrace.com. That's the email address. So you can always email us there. We do check the YouTube comments as well. We read through every single one of them. So thank you for that. So guys, today we're going to get into some questions and emails that you guys sent us. And one of them was, how do you define your trading edge? How do you find your trading edge? And I'm not going to read out the name, but going forward, if you email podcast@bearbootstraders, let us know that you're okay with us sharing your name. So, if you want that, if you're not, say you want to stay anonymous, and that's fine too. But yeah, we'll talk about trading edges, man, which is a big thing when it comes to trading. I mean, without that, it's very tough to be successful. And in our whole education center, Bear Boost Traders, we got 3 things, right? We kind of divided them into technology, we got strategy, and psychology. And by now, many of you guys have already heard that those 3 pillars. And what put that together is mentorship. And then that creates eventually your edge. So it's a couple of steps you have to go through to find your trading edge. And once you find that trading edge, I mean, I don't want to say trading becomes easy, because it's never easy, but I think it becomes more defined on what you're looking for,
For sure.
what you're going to get into, what you're not going to get into, and there's no guesswork. You don't want to
Yeah.
have guesswork in your trading process, right?
Yeah, I mean, easy isn't the right word, but easier is the right
Yeah,
word.
yeah.
It's certainly, trading with a system versus without one, or trading with an edge versus without one. And really, for me, that's what an edge is, right? Is your edge is your system of performance that, most accurately fits your personality. Right. So one of the big reasons why I feel like a lot of the pump and dump rooms out there, if I can just call them that for fun, is a lot of the issues with those rooms are they make kind of an assumption that everybody is capable of executing the same type of system. Right. So they say,
Mm-hmm.
you come in here, I'll teach you this 3 main indicators with this one thing, MACD this or whatever, and then they just say you're going to be able to make money. But inherently, that doesn't take into account biggest aspect of trading for the individual, which is your psychology, right? And your psychology is going to influence your edge. There's people who are much well, I have a buddy of mine who's he's a risk on kind of guy, right? He's a guy I'm working with, and he's an adrenaline junkie, right? He likes skydiving, he likes roller coasters, he likes fast cars, right? So he cannot trend trade,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Even though I tend to coach more trend trading than not or styles, he can't, right? It's not physically within it. Like you put him in a chair and the guy
Hmm.
will just be
Hmm.
like sitting there like going crazy trying to sit in that thing. He's a momentum trader, right? It really
Right.
fits
Right.
his personality. So he had to gear his style around what fit him. And that is the challenge, especially with so many things out there, so many programs, so many books, so many different things. How do you find your edge amongst the sea of edges that are out there? I don't that's tricky.
It's very tricky, and something you mentioned that's very important to kind of just piggyback on. You mentioned finding something that works with your personality as well, right? Because basically he's not a person that can trade that type of style just because the way he is. So it's got to fit your personality big time, right? And I know exactly what you're talking about these commercials. There used to be a lot on YouTube. I don't see them anymore,
Yeah.
but there was specifically one gentleman comes to mind. Again, not a knock on anyone. Um, but he was coming on and saying, "Hey, with this one strategy, you can be a trader in 90 days." And every time I saw that, I just a professional profitable trader in 90 days. I just laugh like, who's actually believing this, right? I mean, this is just not possible. You cannot build an edge on something like that, and you cannot build an edge on one single strategy because we are all very different. Just in our mindsets, we're all very different, right? So,
Well,
it,
yeah, exactly. Well, see, and on top of that too, right? We have this thing we call the Dunning-Kruger effect, right? Psychological effect, right? Which is you don't know what you don't know.
yeah.
It's funny how those pump and dumps they actually work in the beginning, right? Because in the
Hmm.
beginning you don't really know the risk, you don't really know what's going on. You just do what they tell you to do, so your psychology is not even at play, right? You're
Good
just
point.
doing it. But then you take that first big loss, that
Hmm.
first big damage to your account, and all of a sudden your psychology comes in. You lose that conviction, and then you're done, right? You
Right.
you come
Right.
crashing down, right? And you're never able to recover because what you haven't done is taken the time how to learn how to be a trader. You've just learned how to duplicate one quick thing, and once that stops performing, you don't have the agility anymore to roll with the punches. You're just out, right? And
Yeah.
that's where
Yeah.
most of us actually start becoming traders. There's many of us that actually came up through that time period, and I think a lot of us were kind of thinking, "Oh wow, man, I can get on an
Hmm.
app
Yeah.
and I can do this and I can make this much
Yeah.
money." And all of a sudden you come down, you're like, ooh, it's
Yeah.
not
It's
that easy.
not that easy. And you're starting to see now as we're recording this podcast, the market's kind of been in a somewhat of a bullish run. People get excited when things are bullish, right? People want to, because obviously we want the overall market to go up. It's good for everyone. It's good for our 401ks, our retirement plans. We all want the market to eventually go up and keep on going and break all-time highs. It's a positive thing. But we've been seeing that over the last couple of days. So people are getting more excited. You have new people that want to try different things, more active trading that start coming into the mix here. And it's easy to get caught into that where you think you found an edge, you think you're successful because everything is going, the right way. But the minute things start going sideways or down or against you, you haven't put that psychological mindset into play. And that's where you start getting into trouble, right?
Carlos, you make a good point there too. Like, let's say we can only go 6 months. Oh, I'm going to make you a successful trader in 6 months. How many markets have you been in where the market's performing the same way 6 months from now?
That's a
Right? The
great
market
point.
cycles, right? It
Yeah.
goes through bullish, through bearish. Right now, we're kind of in a kangaroo. You know what I mean? We rock in and out of these different cycles. So it's like just by the time the person learns whatever this,
It changes.
awesome strategy is, you're now in a different market. I remember you and I both, I think, started right around a bull rally that kind of went for like a solid year to a year and a
Yes.
half. And
Yes.
the big joke was stonks only go up.
Yeah.
That's all we
Yeah.
used to say. Stonks. This is a
Or
stonk.
the
This is a
finger the
stonk.
finger to finger strategy. You
Two
buy
finger
here,
method.
sell here.
Just and that was the whole thing, and we laughed because it was true, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
like it really, if you were an aggressive bull, you just waited for a good pullback, and once it started making new highs, you just buy it using a major new low, and you were probably making money,
Hmm.
and that's really awesome. But that is a trending style that will only work as long as the market is in your direction. Of course, like everyone knows at this point, solid year and a half or so ago, you know, we
Things
started we
change.
started we
Yeah.
started doing the opposite, right? And I happen to really like shorting, so
Hmm.
I've been living my best life for the past year,
Yeah. Yeah.
shorting against the market, even though the market itself is damaged. So in my edge, I'm a real big contrarian. Whenever the market's going up, I'm just waiting to play the other direction. Whenever it's going down, I'm just waiting to play back up. I'm always playing the value, squeezing the price back to the middle, and it's just a fun spot to be. So lately we've been in a kangaroo kind of market. These are great markets actually for me to profit in. I tend to do bad when we go really bullish or really bearish now because I'm just
Yeah.
always looking for the bounce. But everyone has their edges that will be defined, right? And this is a big part of it, right? Is, A, you have an edge, but B, is the market conducive for your
Hmm.
edge? If you're an adrenaline junkie like my buddy, kangaroo markets are a little complicated, right?
Yeah.
Because you're,
Yeah.
you're you're stuck waiting for long times. You have to hold your position. We used to only have to hold it for 10 or 15 minutes. Now you got to hold it for a couple of hours. You know what I mean? That's not fun, especially if you're a
It's not
Momo.
fun.
If you're a
Yeah.
momentum trader, you're
Yeah.
you're not happy.
Yeah, definitely not fun and a whole different type of trading. And this is why that edge is so crucial, guys. And it does take time to build that. We'll talk towards the second half of this on how you can build it, how you can find your edge, some ticks and trips, but ticks and some tips and tricks on how to do that. But yeah, finding your edge is so critical. We were talking this morning in the pre-market show. A stock came up, one of the low flow flying high this morning, and people get excited when they see a stock 80, 120% up for the day, right? Usually a lower price, it's just cranking. The issue with that is, yes, you can get lucky once or twice and you might grab a nice run. But then now you come down to, can you build consistency on something like that? That is the
Hmm.
key. And most likely the answer is going to be no. You cannot build consistency on some of these low flow stocks that just shoot up and come back down and are very erratic. And there's really no trading edge. You're just saying, hey, let me get in here, let's see what happens, right? But you don't really have a plan or an edge on that. And that's where things become extremely difficult to do over and over and over again and repeat. So keep that in mind, guys, that finding your edge does take time, and you got to be honest with yourself. Are you getting lucky? Are you winging it? Or do you really have an edge that you are constantly practicing over and over again and tracking? You got to track this
Absolutely.
stuff, you know?
Well, and you got to think too, it's like, what's your goal as a trader, for instance, right? Like I'm a day trader, right? I make a good chunk of my income comes from the trades that I'm just making on a daily basis. So I have a certain expectation for my trading, and that has to wrap in there, right? I have a business, if you will, and I need to generate a certain amount of income or a certain amount of profit every day, so that I can pay myself.
Yes.
And that became. But now, if let's say you're already in a job, and you're doing well in that job, you may be looking to supplement your income or work towards wealth in a different realm. Maybe you're trying to build generational wealth for your children. So you're going to have different strategies, and that's going to define your edge and where you are as well. So I think first thing on that, for finding your edge or defining it, is first you need to understand, or at least define what your goals are as a trader. That should be the number one thing, I think, that kind of steers your direction on what kind of systems you're going to want to develop, right? Like day trading is very aggressive,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
you may, if you're just looking to build generational wealth, you may want to learn how to day trade so you understand how to get in and out of positions, but you may be looking for longer holding. Maybe you're going to look and do swing trades or trend intraday
Hmm.
trades
Hmm.
where you're buying early in the morning and selling in the afternoon. You may not need an aggressive momentum style, but then again, you could say, hey, I want to live my life. I want to be able to get done in 15, 30 minutes a day, and then I want to be able to go off and do my thing. So I want to generate a lot of money fast, and I'm okay with putting risk on the line to do that, right? Well, that puts you in that momentum category, right? And then you can come
Yeah.
in. That's
Yeah.
more like our boss Andrew,
Hmm.
right? He can step in, no watch list, right? No market. He doesn't know what's going on in the market right now,
Yeah.
right? But
First
he sits
news,
down, he
right?
goes,
Hmm.
"What are we looking at? Here's the list." He looks at it and he goes, "This is what's happening." And the dude just yanks money out of the market,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
This is a momentum trader in their
Hmm.
purest version. He doesn't need to know the fundamental. He doesn't need to know what's going. All he needs to know is where are we and what's the price action? Where are we going, right?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
boom, he's in. And I mean, I've day in and day out. It's Andrew continues to be one of the most impressive momentum traders
Yeah.
I get the pleasure of watching.
And I mean, it's amazing to see, and we've seen his progress from the beginning. When we started as members, right, 2018, 2017, we've seen his progress until now, and it's amazing to see how he has progressed to the level that he has now. And you're
Mm-hmm.
right, it's watching, it's watching magic with this guy. He is that good. He's that so tuned into what's happening with the price action, and this also comes with over years of experience. So this he just didn't pick up one morning and say, "Hey, this is what's happening. Let's make it happen." This is years of experience in the building. So he
Oh,
has
for sure.
truly found an edge that works for him in the scalping momentum, realm. And sometimes those momentum plays like Tesla today, run up
Yeah.
quite a bit. Went above 200 this morning, and it ran up and gave him a really nice pop there. So it takes time, guys. That's one thing that we do want to stress. Don't feel like if you don't have your edge. I know the question came in from someone that's been trading for I think about 6 months now, and and they want to get to the year being able to have their edge in place. So it does take time, and there's some steps you gotta make sure you take. Like you were mentioning now about being able to find the style of trading, whether it's a momentum, whether it's swing trading, and it doesn't have to be all day trading. It could be other stuff as well, right? You still have to have an
Mm-hmm.
edge. What's going to separate you from other traders? What's going to give you the opportunity for the best possible probability that this is going to work out, right? So it's very important. So I think first you got to pick. Once you set that up, once you pick what style you're going to trade, what time frame of the day you're going to trade, the next thing is going to be put that thing to the test. And I'm talking about 100 sample set trades, constant over
Big
and over
time.
again. And the biggest part about it is it's not just the screen time that you have to do. You now have to track each and every single one of these trades. And I know that's a lot of work. This is why sometimes when you see people that, well, let's sidetrack a little bit. I hear that 90% of people fail in trading, I'm always intrigued by that number because I would love to have a breakdown, right? And I don't know, I mentioned this before in other avenues, either in our onboarding class every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern time. If you want to join that, you can go to bearwithtrace.com. I talk about this all the time because expectations is key. So that 90% of people that fail, how many people are actually doing the right thing? And who's less than 3 years? I want take out anyone less than 3 years. If you've been trading less than 3 years, then yeah, I don't want to know about you. But above 3 years, right, the right steps, a process, journaling, and everything, that number is going to be more realistic. It probably won't be 90%. I'm not saying it's going to be only 10%. It's going to be pretty high. But what I'm trying to explain here is that there has to be a process, a rigorous process you have to follow to become successful. And if you're not willing to do
Mm-hmm.
that, you are not going to make this. It's just as simple as that. And some
Yeah,
people are
absolutely.
not. Some people are not willing to do this. So to go back to my point, tracking every single trade and learning from every trade, and then seeing, okay, you know what? When the stock did this, it fell below the VWAP and it came back up with this amount of volume, and the ATR in the stock is this, and now we're that candle closed, the next candle opens up and it makes a new high. That's a good entry for me to go in. These are things, details that you're going to only get better at if you're tracking them and seeing, okay, I'm starting to build a pattern. When this happens, I'm winning, you know, 65% of the time on this trade. It's a lot of work. So the
Yeah.
tracking journal part is where you can build that. Hey, friends, I hope you're enjoying this conversation as we're midway through this episode. Please make sure to subscribe in whatever platform you're listening so you can catch every weekly episode that we release. Remember, you can always reach us at podcast@bearbootraders.com. I also want to remind you to visit tradingterminal.com for tools for trading and also bearbootraders.com for more information about our trading community. Let's get back to our conversation.
So I have a fairly good example. We're actually hopefully going to have him on maybe in one of the next few episodes. It's a buddy of mine named Chris, and
Yeah,
he's a
yeah,
really good example of this. So my buddy Chris, he's been in BBT for a few years himself. He's been out a little bit because he's got some health stuff going on, which is part of why we want to bring him in. Is people have been asking us about dealing with diversity in your trading,
yeah.
and so we thought he'd be fun in for that as well. But he'd actually be able to chime in on this subject really well, is because he used to get so upset because he wanted to be a trend trader.
Mm,
Chris,
mm.
and now Chris, MC, who we now know lovingly as Chris McScalp for a reason, is because he's one of the most proficient scalp traders in our room. But laughingly, he still secretly, I think, dreams of being a trend trader someday. Like, he's always wanted it,
Yeah, yeah.
but because he used a systematic approach and he tracked the data, what he found was he was better at scalping. Even though he wanted to be a trend trader, even though he thought that was going to fit his personality better, what ended
Yeah.
up happening was he became an avid scalper, because what he found in the long run is what he thought was going to fit his personality actually wasn't. He's really
Hmm.
good
Hmm.
at taking very intentful, specific, well thought out trades, but he doesn't like being in positions for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he's okay with putting in a very small distance for his risk level and then going for a very quick profit. He takes what he can get out of the move. As soon as it comes backwards, he's out and he just takes his scalps and he calls it a day, and he's loving life. He's trading
Yes.
well.
Yeah.
But it's funny. It's exactly the opposite of who he wanted to become as a trader, but he's doing a great job at, so it just shows that you have to run that data like Carlos is talking
Yeah.
about. You
Yeah.
have to pay attention, because that data is going to tell you what's working and what's not working or not, and maybe even convince you that what you thought was going to be your edge
It
isn't.
isn't right,
You know,
right, and you want to pivot and do something else, do what comes more natural to you. I had a similar situation with a buddy of mine. He's part of the community as well, and same thing. He wanted to trade a little bit more like me on the 5 minute opening range breakdown. So we did a couple of mentoring sessions, and every time we had we met. Okay, let's look at your trades. He was doing these amazing scalping trades. They were working out, but he's like, yeah, but that's not what I want to do. I want to do a 5 minute opening range breakout and breakdown. I'm like, dude, but you are making money
like, are you
here.
sure you don't want to do them?
Like,
Because you did them.
you're making money here. Why don't we focus on this over here? And now he's, a few years later, the guy is crushing it. He's, and he's doing it on scalping. He's doing options as well now. So he kind of gave up the push to be this and do what actually came natural to him, which is what you have to keep in mind. You don't want to have this strong bias as, okay, this is what I have to do. I want to become like Andrew. I want to become like Thor. I want to become like Mike.
Which was my goal.
You
I
know,
wanted to be Andrew.
we
Like,
all we all start like that.
I just wanted
Yeah.
to be as cool as Andrew. I
Yeah.
was just like, man, this guy is just awesome. And then I realized I didn't have the fortitude for it. I'm too paper handed.
Hmm. Yeah.
I couldn't hold the drawbacks the way he can hold through his drawbacks.
Hmm.
And because he's a momentum trader, so
Yeah.
he's not worried about the level as much as he's worried about the momentum.
Hmm.
And I ended up finding out that what resonated for me was I actually became very good at playing basically reversals.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not the best at telling when it's going to keep doing what it's doing, but I'm really good at telling when it's not doing what it was doing. Right.
Right.
And that's
Right.
when the majority of reversals set up. So I watch the order book, I watch the tape, and I look for significant changes in price action and order book structure in order to tell when I think the mood of the market, if you will, is trading. And
Yes.
that's what I
Yes.
trade. I trade the mood of the market. So like I took the Tesla trade this morning along with Andrew as well. But I bought it a little lower because I bought it off of S3 when it got down to S3, because the order book was very bullish, even though it was selling off. So I bought it as it sold it off, even with the strong book. So, and that ended up being my
Right.
style. But I wanted to be a momentum trader, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I literally wanted it to be like Andrew. I wanted to be more like Paris, who's traded with Andrew for a long time. Paris uses the order book very, very well, but he's still more of a momentum trader.
Yeah. Momentum type
So I
trader too.
wanted to
Yeah.
be more
Yeah.
aggressive and be able to do that. It just didn't end up fitting my personality. So now I trade the way I trade, and I trade better than I could have ever hoped to at this point. I mean, I'm really enjoying my trading, but it's just got tweaks. And I think we said this in the last episode. If you took all the BBT moderators across
Hmm.
the board, sat all of us in a chair next to each other, and then gave us a whiteboard and said, now fill out your edge, turn it
Right.
around, none of those whiteboards look the same.
Yeah. So
Every
true.
what you're at now, there will be obvious groupings and similarities. What
Hmm.
averages 920. you know what I mean? There's going to be like a few different things that like, kind of, because we're all in the same, community that we're going to
Right,
likely
right.
share. But what will surprise most people, right? You go to a lot of the rooms out there. If you flip that card around, number one, number two, number three, number four, number five in the group, the card all looks the same. They're all using the same indicators, the same crosses, the same
Hmm.
signals.
Yeah,
But you
yeah.
look at ours, we've got 10 moderators plus across the line, and every single one of them slightly different card,
That has their
to
edge. Yeah,
majorly
yeah,
different card. I mean, the difference between Eamon and I, for instance, and the way we trade RVR, we trade the exact opposite ends of the spectrum, but we both trade similarly on signal and we both profit. It's
yeah.
wild.
It's great. It's great to see that, that there's so many different ways that you can find your edge, that you can actually trade it, right? So it doesn't have to be one way, or it doesn't have to be one specific way, the right way. There's so many different ways. That's why when I see these ads, man, I'm just like, these guys know, I mean, they know about trading, but they know nothing about, actually the
You're just
different ways you
ignoring
can
people.
trade.
You're
Right. It's
just
just
ignoring
like,
people.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're hitting the keywords. They want people to feel comfortable, and they want to make it seem like it's easy, and it's really not, guys. Very difficult. They're usually trying to
We
sell
scare
something.
people off because we don't do that. They come in there and we go, if anything, we're going to tell you right up front, there's
Yeah,
potential here, but it's going to be difficult, right? And
it's
so
gonna
people go,
take
oh, I
time.
want to go to the room where the guy says this is going to be a piece of cake. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? And it's
yeah.
like, that's not us. We're we will work really hard to coach you in every way and get you to fruition, but we're not going to do it by blowing sunshine.
No, absolutely not, because that's not going to help anyone. It's not going to help you in the long run. So absolutely not. So yeah, guys, this edge is so crucial, and the great thing about it is that we all start with the same fundamentals. Like if you look at BBT, if you look at the
100%.
first couple of core courses, and like you said, also with the different moderators and the different way they trade, we all have the same fundamental that usually most of us got it from Andrew, right? So it's the same fundamentals, and then from there we kind of split out to different, I want to say, kind of expertise, or kind of like edges, right? So everybody has a little different style, and some are very minor. Like for example, if you look at
Hmm.
some of the stuff that Peter does with his mountain pass reversals, is very similar to a double top reversals that other moderators are doing. It's just that he has his set criteria on the stuff that he tracked, like we mentioned earlier on his journal. He said, hey, when this and this and this happen, the mountain pass is a good deal for me. I'm taking
Yep.
this trade. You know,
Yeah, he wants a certain high and then
yeah,
followed by a certain low and
right,
then a certain
right,
moving average cross, certain order book structure.
yeah.
But his hit rate on those have gone from like 50-50 to like I think like 70%
It's
or
very
something like
high.
that. And if you get into the 70 percentile rate on pretty much any strategy, that's
Mm,
pretty much trading nirvana at that point.
yeah,
I mean, as
yeah.
long as your risk versus your RVR isn't jacked,
Hmm.
I mean, you're making money pretty much every day if you're at a
Yeah,
70% hit rate on a strategy that's replicatable, and that's not huge. I mean, really, if your RVR is right, anything north of 50-50, you can at least break even and survive
hmm.
on.
Correct,
But
correct.
all you got to do is get to 60% or 70%, and then that number starts to exponentially change wildly. I mean, things get really, really fun,
Yeah,
once you start to get into those levels of being able to reproduce. And Peter has been, someone I've looked up to as a trader for a very long time. And mostly one of the main things is that his consistency in the way he kind of coaches and says, hey, I've seen days where Peter hasn't taken a trade the
oh
entire
yeah,
day
yeah,
because he said at no point during this entire day did I see a mountain pass that set up the way
right,
I wanted to
right.
trade it. And I'll go,
Yeah.
you're better than me. You know what I mean? Because
I
I
took
would
a couple
afford,
of stabs here and there.
yeah, I took a couple stabs somewhere. I
Yeah,
wasn't
yeah,
that strong. And then the next day he goes, hey, I nailed 3 mountain passes in a row. I absolutely crushed today. And
yeah,
you're just
yeah.
like, this is amazing. You know?
Which also, guys, for those hearing and watching, you wanna be honest with yourself about, you might have an edge that might not be hitting that 60%, and it's maybe because you're not following the rules. Right? So you got to be careful with that as well. Don't immediately feel like you don't have an edge if you're not following rules. Like everything else
For real.
has to be in place. Your entry, your trade book is in line, and that you are actually following everything to the T, and then your edge might work, but your edge is not going to work if you're not following things. So it's so easy for us as humans, not even as traders, just as humans, to point the finger elsewhere, even with our own problems, like, oh yeah, but I did that because of this, or I did that because of that. You got to look inside and say, okay, what did I do wrong here? What can I do better? And this is where that trading journal, man, it is a huge
Big time.
piece of tool for you to become a trader. There's not one book that I have read that does not talk about having a trading journal. Doesn't matter where you're trading, forex, equities, Bitcoin. I don't care what it is that you're trading.
Yeah.
The one thing that's common on all of these books that I have read is tracking your journal, tracking your results, and
Well,
tracking
I
your
mean,
growth.
data
Yeah.
is your salvation. You know what I mean? Data is
Hmm.
your saving grace when it comes to this whole thing. Data is what keeps you from having to be emotional. Data is what allows you to figure out if you're right or wrong. If you're tracking your data and you're executing, we've said this in a prior podcast as well. If you're tracking your data and you're executing, there's no reason for you to be upset at your performance.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
said you were going to do something and you did
Hmm.
it. So regardless of result, it's you can almost relieve some of the culpability from you, because you're saying, hey, I'm just an entry and exit mechanism. I have a
Right. Right.
strategy that I put in place. I'm following the strategy. Okay, the strategy has not worked
Hmm.
consistently.
Hmm.
Okay, I know that. Let's move on. New strategy. Let's develop. What do we have to tweak? What do we have to change? But it all starts with execution and then collecting data. If you don't execute properly, then the data you're collecting is garbage, right? And
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
it's not going to help you, or the help that it gives you will be minuscule in comparison to, lose or win. The data
Hmm.
you get when it has good integrity, is just awesome, and you'll get to your edge a lot faster that way, a
Oh
hundred
yeah.
percent. And I agree.
Absolutely.
Of all the big books out there, someone actually, one of our things we asked, someone asked us what some of our favorite books were. One of mine is Mark Douglas, big psychology guy, and he
Hmm.
talks about running. I think it's 20 trade or 25 trade. I forget the exact number off the top of my
Yeah.
head.
Yeah.
Trade sets and journaling and doing this many trade sets, evaluating, making adjustments. This many trade sets, evaluate. And it's really interesting. It doesn't matter how far you go back, Livermore,
Hmm.
Wyckoff, Dow. I mean, you can run this thing as far back as you want, and everyone's going to say, well, you got to have data.
Right, right, right. Well, before you actually put out your book, right? Which, by the way, you guys can pick up at a complete trading system at Amazon. Oh, there it is. There's a copy for those watching on YouTube. A complete day trading system on Amazon by Thor Young. We grew up, well, not we grew up, but we started with Andrew's book, right? That
Yeah.
was kind of like the
Yep.
one that started us. So it's a great starting place if you're a brand new trader, because the way he breaks down trading made it simple for me. I think if I would have picked up some books after that, the ones I read after, if I would have picked those up, I would have been like, huh, probably we don't want to do this. So that
Mm-hmm.
kind of showed me like, okay, here's the simple steps to get started, and kind of took me from A to Z from someone that knew nothing about trading. You
Yeah,
know,
that's so for those
yeah,
who haven't come across it yet, it's How to Day Trade for a Living. The title fits. It was the book that I encountered. My wife actually bought it because the title worked.
yeah, yeah,
But as I read the book, there's a couple moments in there where I really liked it, and I knew it's the reason I came to BBT as a community, because there's like some verbiage in there that basically says, by the time you're done with this book, I'm not going to say you're going to be a day trader, but I'm going to say you're going to have an idea of what's going on, and you're going to know whether or not you want to keep going. You
right,
know what I mean?
right,
And that's what I got from it. After I read it, I was like, okay, I definitely know I'm really interested in this, and I
hmm,
want to learn more. Right. So, and
yeah,
then I started going into it. He's got an advanced book out there, Brian Swing Trading. And then, we talk about finding your edge, right? That's my whole book is,
yeah,
because I found a slightly different edge that ended up being more based upon volume and price analysis and pivot structure and stuff like that. So my book ended up being
yeah.
centered around that, because it ended up being, my edge that's kind of resonated with a few in our community.
And the
So,
great thing about that is too that is you could take the steps you have on that book and find your own edge too, right? So you don't
oh,
you're not
sure.
you don't have to trade just like Thor's trading, but you could take those steps and replicate them to find your own
Hmm.
edge, which is an amazing thing to do.
Well, the only thing, so a lot of people, for your edge, right? There are parts that should be the same. Like I said, if we flip
Hmm.
those cards around, parts of those are going to be the same, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
my book is one of the few books that talk about like the actual order book and like time and sales reading, tape reading. not covered in very many resources out there.
Hmm.
These are things everybody should be using, right? You
Hmm.
should know what the order, if the order book is conducive for a
Right.
long,
For
right?
supporting what you're
You
trying
should
to do.
know if the
Hmm.
tape is buying or selling, right? These are fundamental things that all of us, you should know how market making works. My book talks a
Yeah.
lot about market making and what incentivizes them. You should know all of these basic things. It doesn't matter if you're a momentum trader, a swing trader, an intraday trader, a scalper. You should know these things. The,
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
edge will ultimately be a very small and subtle difference between the
Right.
way you manage that information
Hmm.
versus how
Correct.
somebody else
Correct.
manages it. So I use pivots because that's my where, right? That's where
Right.
I'm looking for specific types of price action. And then my book kind of breaks down into where, when, and how, right?
Hmm.
Because basically all my trades are, I have a where, and then when is the tape and all of that, and then how is how I manage it and myself and my business, my little trading business. So when you go into that, and you start to look at that and you break it apart, you go, oh, okay, my
Yeah.
edge
Yeah.
really isn't like this big, huge difference, right? It's what everybody else is doing, but I'm going to find just one or two subtle tweaks that, inevitably,
That makes it
make it so that
yours.
I can
Yeah.
tolerate the trade.
Correct. Correct. No, it's really, really amazing, man. And then on my end, two other books that you haven't mentioned already. One of them will be Trading in the Zone. Actually, you did mention that one, Trading in the Zone by Mark Douglas. Really
That's the one.
great
I didn't
book.
get the title though.
I
So
mean, it's really great book, guys. Pick that one up. And another one that was good for me was Millionaire Traders. And I forget who
mm,
was from, but this was a book that they talked to several millionaire traders. And the great thing about it is that you realize how even traders different trading commodities, trading forex, trading different things. Some traders were trading only a couple of stocks. Like there was one trader there that only had a list of about five stocks, and that all he watched the entire time was five stocks that were, in play, and then he would rotate them if one was not in play anymore for the
it's
period of
by
time.
Kathy Lean and Boris
Yeah, is it a
Schlossberg.
white cover with blue letters? I believe. Is it?
Yep,
Yeah,
yep.
that's
Gold
it.
on the
Yeah,
top and then blue letters. Yep.
yeah, really good book, and you realize that everyone on there, although trading very different, something completely separate from each other, they all have the same kind of similar stories. They had a big loss, you know, they had to recover, they had to become disciplined, they had to find an edge, they had to track everything. So it's a really good book to make you realize that there's some things that are really important that you have to do to be able to find your edge. So I really like that book. I got the audio, I think, is what I got on there, but yeah, guys, so many different things you could do to find your edge, but you got to put in the work. You got to do the homework. There's no question about it.
So
And
for
there's
like the
resources out
fundamental
there.
side, right? Like doing
Yeah.
homework. My so I have a couple of books out there that I really really love.
Hmm.
For one of the main ones, I got to drop her a little bit. Anna Cooling. She
Yes.
has the complete guide to volume and price analysis. If you're looking to understand volume and price, and she's actually a forex market on the way she writes the book. It doesn't matter. The information
Hmm.
works. My book also has a very good volume and price analysis one, but I decided I wouldn't just plug it again, although I just did. It's her book. It's the book that I learned volume and price analysis on, and
Yeah.
it was a really really valuable resource that I enjoyed immensely. So that was a really good one. And then, of course, since I'm a pivot trader, everyone has to give a little shout out to Secrets of a Pivot Boss. That guy has got some good books out there as well. But at BBT, we've got a whole suite of books for we got our boy
Yeah.
Artie has put out
Yeah.
a book
Yep.
as well recently. I mean, we've got some stuff.
Yeah.
Mike, Bear, and Andrew did a psychology book, which I read through and found quite comprehensive.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. So it's a lot of information out there, guys. You could go to bearwithtrace.com and get all the details there, and take advantage of the again the tons of information that we have to find your edge. One last thing about finding your edge as we start to wrap it up here is that, guys, remember it does take time, right? It's not going to
mm,
happen overnight, and it's a lot of work. And something you mentioned in the previous episode, Thor, is about it's not just about time; it's how much that time has been active, right? So you could say, oh, I've been trading for about a year now, but how much time have you actually spent tracking, trading, reviewing? That's going to play a big role in it. So it does take time, but make sure you're going in there and doing the homework, tracking everything, and being able to find these, again, like you said, all these small changes that can make a difference on your edge, right? So
Yeah,
very, very
absolutely. Well, I
important.
mean, you got to think, as we're getting into it, it's one recommendation I have to throw out there too is make sure to keep your work smaller and specific. The one way you're not going to undercut the speed of the system by trying everything at the same time.
Yeah,
So you're
very
just
true.
going to overwhelm yourself. We have this little thing called analysis paralysis,
Hmm.
right? Which is you're just throwing so much information at yourself that you're unable to act. So you don't want to try and sample being a break a high a day trader at the same time you're trying to be a momentum trader at the same time you're
Yeah,
trying
yeah.
pivots and see which one of these work. I'd recommend. I actually one of the great things about being in a trading community like BBT, and most of the others will, is you can just sit online. We have moderators sharing their screen all day throughout the day, and we're all varied style traders. So you can actually just take the time and just sit there with your hands off and just talk to the different moderators, see how they're trading, and just see, yeah, this kind of feels more like something I want to do. Right. And at least you get a starting point. But then, like I said, you need to kind of be specific with it and say, okay, I'm going to try this. Let's see how this works. And if that doesn't work, then switch and try something. Because the one thing you don't want to do, because like Carlos reiterated, right, if it's going to be these small, subtle changes, right, you can't have so much data because then a
No,
small,
oh
subtle
man, you're not
change,
gonna see
where
it.
do you
Yeah,
even
yeah,
look to find it?
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's the track and everything. And again, going back to those indicators, understanding all the indicators, and then seeing, okay, when this indicator does certain things, I'm able to get a good return or a good outcome that you're expecting. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Guys, want to remind you again, and make sure you are emailing us at podcast@bearable.com on what you want to hear, any topics you want us to cover. Again, leave comments on the YouTube videos and let us know, something that's affecting you and your trading. We'll make sure to cover it if it fits into our plans here. But as you can see, this one came from, I'll say the name, Antonio. Antonio, thank you for submitting that. And also, I forgot who sent the book request, but thank you as well. And hopefully that book list was helpful. It helped us a ton, and we are sure that if you pick some of these up, they will help you as well. So guys,
Mm-hmm.
take care. We will see you in the next episode. Remember to subscribe and like. We are going to be doing this every week. This is our number 6 episode, so very exciting, going into February, and look forward to talking to you guys next week.
Thank you, everybody. Talk to you later.